o'clock. So will you be in charge of just putting those in our boxes? Thank you so much.
Come a little bit closer because I want to give you a little bit of context of what I'm going to do with you. So really, really close, really, really close. Even closer. And just sit down. Oh, sorry, yes, I'm going to have here for a short moment. It's good to see so many people and some known faces, which is great. So I just wanted to give a little bit of context of what I'm doing because I've been asked to teach a lab class and on improvisation and leading to technique. So I thought, how can I combine all of this and give you a little bit of impression of what I'm doing and how I will use or how I use Laban in my work. And I wanted to do something about rhythm today because another thing that's really dear to me is working with music and sound and how that creates a space and how we feel in that environment. So we'll start with a little bit of an improvisation and I hope you'll follow me to do whatever we're going to do. And then we'll, at the end of the class, we'll teach you a phrase and you take a look at that, how what I do with rhythm might relate to a technical thing that we're doing. So my question is to you, what do you think is rhythm? Well, just tell me when I say what is rhythm, what comes to mind? Does anything come to mind?
3365 out there.
Like a pattern of sound.
A pattern of sounds, yeah?
Beat.
Beats. So something like metric,
Yeah.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, a metric rhythm. A structure of music, yes, so it's a musical structure, we're really aware of that. When you listen to a piece of music, you could even think about a big rhythm. There's the, you have the text, the beginning, and then there's the refrain, and the text and the refrain. That's in a way in a broad sense, a rhythm as well, in terms of the structure. Is rhythm something that we only can hear?
No.
No! Who said no?
Me.
I'm going to give the question to the students. So, no, she said no. What else can we do?
You can feel the rhythm too.
You can feel it and sense it with your body, yes. So personally, we can feel it, so it's the vibration. And as an audience?
You can see it visually.
Yes, what do you see?
The coordinated movements or the, kind of go with the rhythm.
Yes. Do I need to hear music to see rhythm? No. So what is it, where do I see the rhythm? Can you identify and tell me if I would explain to somebody who doesn't know anything?
And like the patterns of their body movements?
Yes. So you see it in the body, don't you? You see it in within dance, we maybe see it in shapes and in terms of how do we move our body in terms of time. Yes, so it's also something that is visible. And that's what I'd like to look at today. How can it be visible? Just to give a little bit of context, how do I connect that to Laban, a visible rhythm? Well, Laban was really interested in, he thought that everybody of us has a natural structural movement. So we are all different. Already how everybody is sitting here, you have a different body tension, you have different shapes, so everybody has a natural way of expression. That's just us. So if you notice everybody who's coming into the space, they have a different timing, yeah? And depending how your day was, you will walk differently each day as well. If you had a heavy day, maybe you're going to come in a little bit slower, or yes, you can go out this weekend, it's great. There is a completely different kind of way of doing it. So I found this one, I'm going to read it to you, and I don't know if you can see it, but I thought if you have the chance, it's maybe easier to follow. I think it's really beautiful. So Laban said, rhythmic movement is the basis of play and art. I already like the connection between play and art, that's almost the same. The actor on stage shows in his rhythmic movements a great variety of efforts, which are characteristic for almost all shades of human personality. In watching dancing, our interest is focused upon the visible efforts, things that we see, forming the rhythm expressed by movement. What you said, so the movement, in the movement we see a rhythm in the body. we can gather the meaning of a movement, and though it seems difficult to express it in exact words, I think he's really right, it's really difficult to identify all of these different elements that are taking place. Rhythm conveys something by which we are influenced. We may be excited, depressed, or tranquilized. So Laban applies this broad concept of rhythm also as a choreographer. And I think that's really what's inspiring me as a maker, but also as a teacher, working with movement. And what I found really beautiful is that he recognized this big element of rhythm in his time, mostly about the body and the body rhythm. The vision of the world of an arrangement of rhythmical vibrations on a vast scale of waves and dynamic streamings might prove to be a powerful incentive for future choreographers. In 1948, he wrote that. So then he was only thinking about the body and the rhythm. And now I think we are about, 48, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 10, 60 years later, is it correct? Yeah, something like that, 60 years later. 70 years later, 70 years later, 70 years later. And the performances have changed in a way. We have more elements that are in there. And I think he had a sense of that. There will be more things to consider, not only the body. And I've been trained in the UK, and a lady called Valerie Preston Dunlop, which you maybe have seen a book. I know you have it in the library. It's called Looking at Dances. Anybody has seen that book? No? She looks at how to analyze performance and looking at Laban principles, and she's developed that further. And she identified that we have these things that are interesting when we analyze performance. So there is the body, the performer, but she also recognizes that it's different if it's only women or only men. We will read the performance differently, for example. We have the movement itself, there's the sound, and the space where we perform, or set design that's in there. And then at the end, last year, she said, I also think maybe the audience needs to play a part of that, because without the audience, there's no performance. A performance only becomes something if people are actually watching and they're receiving. So why is that any important for us or for me now today? I've been working with video a lot, and I've always been fascinated by working. For example, last year for Merge, I made a piece where there was video in the back and live performance. And how do these relate in terms of rhythmic structures? How do these relate, and how does the movement relate to the video? How does the sound relate to that? Because if everything, for example, would be quick, we would be completely overloaded, and we don't want to look at anything. So how do you choreograph these different elements together? So then I started to look at rhythm, because I thought this is something that has a huge effect in combining these different elements. So what's my video, or in a more simple way, what's the light design doing on your stage? How quickly do you change a light? What colors do you bring? So a color creates some kind of intensity. And I talked earlier about it, that even movement, you could give movement a color. Like something, what color would that be? Red, yeah, red, pink. It's not green, is it? What's this? Yellow, yeah. There is an intensity which is really similar. So I think you can analyze that in terms of efforts and weight and space and time. So what can you do with sound? You can look at space. So if you look at this space, do you see any rhythmical design in this space? If you just turn around, and what could you see as something that is maybe, I could read as something rhythmical in there? Hmm?
The waves in the curtain.
The waves in the curtain, yeah. And that's not even the same, because the top one would be 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then the waves in the curtain is kind of the melody line. So you can read rhythm in the space. Yeah, really nice observation. And of course the body. Now, to be able to somehow choreograph and think of all these things, I think I felt that the most important for me is to understand time and rhythm in my body to start with. So long leap, how do I go back to training the body in terms of time and rhythm? I think if I know how to do it with my body, I can feel it, then I can also sense and choreograph all the other things together. So that's how it is important to me as a choreographer. Does that make a little bit of sense? Any questions? Anything that you think, oh, I don't know what you're talking about? Okay. The audience is something that as a last thing I'd like to mention, because how we perceive rhythm, do you think that's different in terms of where we come from, what culture we are? Yes?
I feel like there's different, like, so I'm in world music, and we were talking about this music in Africa, and it's very upbeat, but they use it for funerals.
Yes.
And of course here it would be very slow and melodic.
So we have certain connotations with sound and rhythm and what that means to us.
Yes.
And the perception of time is also maybe different. So I was, for example, once at a Uto performance. It was 3 hours long, and I was with my Japanese friend. And for me, after 2 hours, I thought, oh, now it's, I can't sustain that concentration anymore. And for her, she was like, oh, already finished. So it was a complete difference in coming from very different cultures and how we perceive that. Okay, now I want to get moving and think about rhythm in our bodies. And I'd like you to take your socks off if that's possible. I'll do that too.
Somebody's phone is
Annoying us.
alarms going off over here.
I've got a little rhythmic. Speaking of rhythm, at least it's in keeping with it.
Like, okay.